I really honestly did not believe that this could possibly be true. I took my grammar book and asked multiple people, are you sure about this?
Welcome to the Germany Experience, the podcast about life in Germany as seen through the eyes of outsiders. New episodes every Monday. And if you want to get those episodes, subscribe to the podcast. Go to thegermanyexperience.de/subscribe. And there's a list of platforms where you can subscribe to the show. And I'm very excited about the guest in this episode. It's Newman. But before we get there, I just want to say this week, this podcast turns 1 year old. The first episode went out on the 29th of May, 2019. And it's been a whole year, which I can't believe. I cannot believe it's been a year. So a year of the podcast. And to celebrate this Friday, I'm going to be going live on Facebook and having a Q&A session where I answer some questions and also just look back at the podcast over the last year, some of my favorite moments. And yeah, just celebrate this show being 1 year old. All right, let's get on to this week's guest. And this, as cliched as it is, this guest actually needs no introduction. I always say for new foreigners coming to Germany, there's 3 things that they will get to know very early on in their stay in Germany. The Ausländerbehörde, which is the foreigner's office, the Einwohnermeldeamt, which is where you register your residency in Germany, and Dana Newman. She hosts a YouTube channel called Wanted Adventure, and it covers topics that are very valid and important for foreigners living in Germany. Things like culture shocks that she's experienced, things about learning the language, all kinds of things. She covers it in her videos, and a lot of people know Dana Newman. In fact, when I started this podcast, a few people said to me, hey, you should interview Dana Newman. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure, maybe when this podcast is 1 year old. At any rate, she's not only a YouTuber, but last year she released a book called You Go Me on the Cookie, and it describes her experiences learning German and also highlights some of the quirks of the German language. And it was written in German for Germans specifically to show them just how interesting and funny and beautiful their language can be. But when I read it, I was thinking, wow, this is actually also of interest to people who have learned German already. As I said to Dana in the interview, there are a lot of moments in this book that I could 100% relate to, and I think anyone who has learned German any amount of time can relate to it. So I wanted to get Dana on the podcast to talk about the book and to talk about some of her adventures and misadventures learning German, and of course, I wanted to talk about her YouTube channel. Here's Dana Newman. Before we get to your book and your adventures with learning the language, maybe you can start with how you landed up here in Germany and where you're from.
Yeah, definitely. So I spent a lot of years growing up. Maybe you can already hear it from my voice. I'm from the US, and I have, I would say, a pretty American accent. I have those nice strong R's that creep into my German as well. And I spent a lot of years living in South Florida, so completely different weather situation. And that's where I was living before I moved to Europe. And you already saw it with my name. So my name is spelled D-A-N-A, which English speakers know is pronounced Dana, right. But my heritage is Czech. And so my name is pronounced Dana. And I grew up learning about my Czech heritage and just being really curious about it. I always knew I wanted to visit the Czech Republic one day. And I don't know, after college, there was just something, I had this push, and I just felt like I need to move to Europe. That was the feeling that I had. And so I sold my things basically at a yard sale. I sold my car and I bought a one-way ticket to Prague. And I decided I'm moving there. I didn't know how to speak Czech. I didn't know anything about Prague, really, except that it was the capital of the Czech Republic. That's all I knew. And I just showed up there. And I thought, okay, I guess I'll stay here a while. I found a job, which is what got me my visa. Because, of course, as an American, I had to have a visa to stay longer in Europe. Mm-hmm. So I got a job and I started learning Czech, and I figured I would stay there a while. And then a few months, as fate would have it, a few months into living in Prague. I went to Munich for a week, and I ended up meeting a nice German guy in an Irish pub.
Right.
And we started dating long distance. And a few months after that, I basically stopped learning Czech and started learning German and started planning for, maybe moving to Germany.
All right. I would have said meeting someone in an Irish pub is not ideal for a long-term relationship. Like, I would think that wouldn't work.
You would think, but I don't know. It worked.
It's the same thing. I met my wife in an alternative nightclub, and but people also told me, girls that you meet in the club, it'll never work. And now here we are.
Yeah, sometimes it works.
How far removed is your Czech heritage? Is it parents or grandparents?
Yeah, my mom was the first generation born in America, so not very far removed. She grew up speaking Czech in the household. She spoke Czech with her parents and learning Czech right alongside English. So it was not far removed at all. So I spoke with my grandma, and she spoke English with an accent, and so it was kind of right there.
Yeah. So they must have been really proud when you said, I'm heading off to Czech to discover my roots.
Unfortunately, my grandmother was no longer alive, but my mom, she was just mostly shocked. Like, she was like, really? Okay. And they kind of thought, like, well, I think we'll see her in a couple months. Like, she'll be back. And then I got a job, and they were like, okay, maybe not. And then I told them that I met a guy, and they were like, oh, no.
Okay, this is over. She's not coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you moved to, I think I've read somewhere that you stayed in Czech for a year and then eventually ended up moving to Munich.
Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And at which point then, but you started learning German already when you were in Czech Republic and you were in the relationship with the German guy, Stefan?
Exactly. Yeah. I started learning German when I was living in Prague still, just kind of trying to teach myself with an A1 German textbook, just trying to figure out the beginning parts of the languages the best I could. And then when I came to Germany, I immediately signed up for an intensive German month. And I took back-to-back 2 months of intensive German courses. Okay. And that gave me a good foundation.
So it worked for you?
Yeah, that was really good. I mean, afterwards, I wasn't fluent, but it gave me a good foundation that then I could kind of work on my own after that. I had a kind of understanding of the basis of the language.
Yeah. So the book that you wrote is all about that journey of learning German. And it's written in a way that to explain to native German speakers as well some of the quirks of their language. And so the book is called "You Go Me on the Cookie." So maybe for those who don't get the reference, who maybe just starting out learning German, you could explain the title of the book.
So "You Go Me on the Cookie" is a literal translation of one of my favorite German sayings, "Du gehst mir auf den Keks." And it's just really great because in German, there are a bunch of sayings to show annoyance. So in German, you can say that something or somebody goes you on the alarm clock, for example. And also on the cookie. And that's how you can say that something is annoying you. And so, I love German, but sometimes it really does go me on the cookie.
Oh, yes. It's a love-hate relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. And with the book, I wanted to kind of show Germans how tricky their language can be, but also I wanted to show them how beautiful it can be because I really, like you said, love-hate. I absolutely love German. And I think that surprises Germans sometimes. Yeah. So I wanted to get that across. And then also I kind of wanted to make a book that I wish Stefan had when I was learning German, because it was really, I would try to talk to him about German and he wouldn't get it. He wouldn't get why it was so hard. He didn't know dative, genitive, accusative. He didn't know any of those things.
Sure.
So... Yeah, there were some fights there with him.
So there was actually not much good to you. I think you said this in the book somewhere as well. It was not much good to you that you had a German speaker at home. I mean, because he's not a teacher. He's not a German teacher. He's not trained as a teacher. He's a native speaker. He speaks it just because that's how he's been brought up. So you had to find other ways to learn, basically.
Exactly. If I could go back, I would set a rule that I didn't ask Stefan questions about German ever. Like, I just didn't. It just didn't work because he never had a satisfying answer. I would ask him, why did you say dame instead of Dane? And his answer would be like, oh, because it's... And he just never had a good answer. The answer was, it just is.
Yeah, it's just, es ist halt so.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like we said, the book is specifically written for native speakers. But what I really liked about it is when I was reading it as someone who's gone through the same processes, obviously not exactly the same journey as you, but similar process to get to learning German. A lot of these things struck a chord with me. I was like, oh my God, that is exactly right. And that's why I thought this would be interesting to a lot of listeners, because some of my listeners are advanced in how far they've learned their German, and some are just starting out learning German. So I think I just wanted to talk about some of these things because I really think a lot of people can relate to it. And when I read this book, I must admit, I laughed out loud many times. It is 100% relatable. But something that struck me is that you have some very clear recollections of those early phases of learning, and reading your stories reminded me, like, as I said, it reminded me of things that I went through at that same time, but I've forgotten since then. And I was wondering, did you keep a diary or notes? Because your recollections are pretty vivid.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did take notes, well, also because of my YouTube channel. I've kind of been collecting ideas for a while. So I've been doing my YouTube channel for coming up on 6 years now. And through that, I think I've kept the memories alive. So I've made over 500 videos about German culture and German language. So I think through that, I revisited the memories a lot. And also, I'm a storyteller. So I have told those stories in the book to people before. So it was not really my first time telling those stories. I've had years of crafting the stories and coming up with my favorite way to tell them. Like, I have always loved storytelling. So, and then I also went for walks and just kind of let my mind, take a nice little walk down memory lane and tried to remember them that way.
Yeah. Because I was almost jealous of the level of memories that you have of learning German at those levels. And I often tell people that come on the podcast as well, the guests that I have, I'm almost jealous of the ones that are starting out learning German, because it's such a journey of discovery. It's such an adventure because you're learning not only the language at the same time, but the culture that comes with it as well. And then you start learning about German movies that you can suddenly watch, and you can suddenly read German books. So I'm almost jealous of people who are starting, as frustrating as it is to them.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting also to see just how the German language is different on a grammar structure level from English. Definitely. Like some things are missing. For example, you don't have this, I have done something. You don't have this feeling of the past meeting the present in German. But in German, how you can talk about what you're doing right now, just using the present tense, and also sort of the future using the present tense. It's very interesting. But sorry, maybe that's a little bit too,
it's
too
it's
language nerdy. I just love languages so much. So
yeah, and it shows. It shows. Just out of interest, what is your home language now, Stefan? Because I assume that you're at a good level of German now. What language do you speak at home?
Yeah, we still speak far too much English, but I always blame it on him because actually his English has gotten so good from speaking to me. When we first met, he could speak some English, but it was, like school English.
Right.
So it was, kind of basic, but as our relationship has gone on, his English has gotten so good, and now he really does prefer speaking English to me. He finds it somehow easier, and I get it. I mean, I find it easier to speak English to him too. Yeah. So, sometimes we're just lazy. Or we'll say, we're going to speak German, and then we'll speak it for 5 minutes, and we don't even notice. It switches back, and it's really frustrating.
I've heard very similar things from other people who have who are in a relationship with the German. It's that they're so used to in the beginning speaking one language with each other that becomes the language of the relationship basically as they move on.
Yeah, exactly. And I have heard, and I do notice it, that voices are higher or lower in a different language, and so you might feel a different connection depending on what language. Yeah.
So getting back to the beginning of learning German for you, what were some of your early approaches to learning German? Because I tell you what, one of the anecdotes in your book that amused me was your Deutsche Dienstags. Maybe you can mention that with Stefan, how you tried to make out a day.
Oh, yes, the Deutsche Dienstags, the German Tuesday. I really thought, because everyone said, yes, you should try to speak. And so we said, okay, Tuesday will be German day. We'll speak German. And it just was such a struggle. Like, it just took forever for me to say everything that I wanted to say. And because we had already been together for a while, we weren't on like getting to know you conversations. So I wanted to talk to him about more complicated topics than my German was ready for. I was also new to Germany at this point, so I wanted to talk to him about cultural things I had noticed and maybe even some political things perhaps, or just paperwork. So more complicated things. And I just found I wasn't able to do it. It took forever to have conversations. And also, at this point, I was coming up against some culture shock, and I was honestly sometimes exhausted just from going about my normal life in Germany, going to the supermarket, and just confused by normal life things. So in the evening, I just kind of wanted to come home and relax and speak the easiest thing. So that was kind of we tried, but yeah.
Yeah, it is, I think in the beginning, and like you said, suffering from culture shock, I experienced right in those early days a lot of language, German fatigue. Like when I went back to South Africa on a vacation to go visit family and friends, I just wanted nothing to do with German. And a lot of friends would invite me out to a German restaurants because they think, oh, well, he's living in Germany. We would go to a German restaurant with him. I'm like, please, I don't want to see the language. I don't want to eat the food. I don't want anything to do with it. And it was, I don't get that anymore. But at that time, I can remember very clearly, it was a lot of German fatigue. I totally get in your own leisure time as well. It's kind of, you want to keep it English and
Yeah, exactly. I can remember, I think maybe like 3 years into living in Germany, there was this special moment when, I can't remember now, but I had been for vacation in a non-German speaking country and also not an English speaking country. I can't remember where now, but so I hadn't been able to understand most of the language. And I can remember when I then returned from that trip to Germany, there was this moment of, good. Now I'm back in a country where I understand the language. And then it was, what?
Oh, crap.
Wow, I have this feeling like I'm back in a country where I understand the language. And I really celebrated that. That was very exciting.
It's funny you should mention it. I had a very similar experience, except with the Czech Republic. My wife and I went to Prague for, I think it was a few days, 3 or 4 days, and it was so weird to be in a country, like you said, that doesn't speak English. A lot of English. I mean, there's a lot of English there, but also no German, and I didn't understand them when they were speaking at all, and I just felt out of place because I kept on wanting to speak German to them because that was kind of my instinctive reaction, because that's what's happening when people are speaking something I don't understand. And I had the exact same thing when we came back to Germany. I was just like, oh, this is amazing. I can understand people again. And it's a big moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the other things in the book that you talk about was you labeling everything in the apartment with stickers. You would literally stick
Yes. Yes, exactly. I took some masking tape. I'm not sure. That's what we call it in the U.S. I don't know what you call it in South Africa.
I think, we call it masking tape as well, yeah.
Okay, so I took that and I put little stickers on everything. There are still items we have now, I'm sure, that have a little residue from the sticker on them. Because, it left, for example, on our TV, it left residue later when Stefan took it off. Yeah, I mean, I thought it would be helpful. And it was, but you can't label everything. And I wanted to. I really wanted to label everything. But yeah, I mean, I guess it did help with some of those, like, basic nouns.
Yeah. And the articles, because you were color coding. I think you said you color coded everything as well. So
True.
That's a big thing.
Exactly.
For new learners.
Exactly. Yes.
And tell me about the importance of Gilmore Girls in your German learning experience.
Yeah. So one of the first things after I got that foundation of German, I started watching as much German language movies and TV shows as I could. And that included American TV shows or movies in German. And Gilmore Girls, I'm pretty sure that I had never seen Gilmore Girls, like maybe an episode or two, but I had not watched the whole thing, and I watched it all in German. And now if I watch it in English, it sounds weird because to me, the characters speak German. That's their voices. That's how they sound. And it really did help me because they did speak kind of fast. So if it's your first show, I would say don't start with Gilmore Girls, because if you've seen it in English, they also speak really fast in English. So they do speak kind of fast, but it really helped me also just hearing the rhythm of the language, even if I didn't understand it.
Yeah. I think that was one of my biggest problems when I first got to Germany, is because for reasons that I said earlier, like in my leisure time, I did like to keep it in English. And I can't handle, to this day, I've been here for 13 years now, and I can't handle dubbed television or synchronized television, as the Germans call it.
Okay, you don't like it.
I cannot get my head around it because I can see that the lips are not moving, even though they do a really good job. I must say they do a really good job in Germany. It's just something that I haven't been able to immerse myself in something if I get the feeling it's not the real voices and so on. So, and that I think it could have helped me more if I was watching or experiencing more entertainment in German. And I think that's definitely something that is recommendable to new German learners.
Yeah.
Yeah. So were there times in this whole process where you just thought that learning this language and integrating, of course, would just never happen?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess I never really thought about that. I never really thought like, will I or won't I? I just kind of kept going. And there were definitely moments where I felt like, this is so hard, or this feels impossible. But I don't know if I really ever sat down and wondered if it might never, ever be possible. Because, I mean, yeah, we talked about at the beginning, I saw my grandmother. She learned to speak English. And so I don't know. No, I never really thought about that. But there were definitely moments where I had this feeling of just, this is so hard. Yeah. It almost feels insurmountable. But I just kind of kept going.
Okay.
And I tried not to think too much about it. I tried not to think about how big that mountain was that I was trying to scale.
Yeah. And I think that's a good approach as well. And what you just said is maybe a good bit of advice, is just to keep focusing on what's in front of you, what you're learning now, and not worry about what's coming or what you don't understand. So.
Yeah, of course, there were moments where I was disappointed or frustrated.
Sure.
Like I can remember sitting down and trying to read an article about something political in German about a year into my German studies. And I was really frustrated that I still couldn't understand it. And it actually took me a really long time before I could understand political articles.
And I saw on your Instagram. I was frustrated. Yeah. I saw on your Instagram you just read a political book.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, is that it took me 10 years, but I finally was able to read a whole book about politics in Germany. And that did feel very satisfying because, it was kind of a long road to get there.
Yeah, it's something you can look at and say, wow, because that's still something that I haven't done. I haven't tackled the political things because, like you say, the political language and the language that you find in newspapers, like the proper newspapers, Frankfurt Allgemeine Zeitung or Süddeutsche Zeitung, it's really difficult. Even now that I'm proficient in German, it's really tough to read those articles. And then you're reading a book about politics. It takes a certain level of German to sit through and understand one of those books.
Yeah, and patience. I read slowly.
I was actually going to say that I read my first German book that I've read, and this is embarrassing to admit for many other reasons, because I should have already done it. But my first German book that I read was this one. You Go Me on the Cookie. Yeah, that was literally the first book
that's
in German that I
awesome.
finished. Yeah, so
Okay.
I was proud of that
Very
for different
cool.
reasons.
Yeah. Hey, well, congratulations.
Yeah. So you're pretty proficient now. You would say that your level is very, very good German.
Yeah, but I'm still frustrated sometimes when speaking.
Yeah, I get that as well. As I said, I've been here 13 years, and there are still times where if I'm at a party and there's background music and people are talking around the table, I still get hopelessly lost sometimes. Sometimes I get so far out of a conversation that I can't be dragged back in, so I just kind of sit in the corner there, and it still happens. There are still situations where I find that, I just can't get in. And one of the examples was you spoke about how much you avoided phone conversations in the beginning, because I think that for a new German speaker is also tough. And I still hate the phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't mind it anymore. I'm okay with the phone. I'll make phone calls. Actually, my husband, Stefan, he hates making phone calls. So sometimes I'll make phone calls for him.
Okay.
Like, I don't mind it. I'm okay.
So there's so much great stuff in this book. And I want to play a clip of you reading from a section about the German words wer und wo. And for those who don't understand that much German yet, just listen to the clip and we'll explain directly after.
Wer heißt who und wo heißt where? Nein. Unmöglich. Entschuldigen Sie bitte, würde ich ganz bestimmt den Kellner im Restaurant fragen. Wer ist die Toilette? Wo ist da? Würde ich in die Gegensprechanlage brüllen, wenn jemand unten an der Tür läutete. Wer ist die Braut? Würde ich den Bräutigam am Tag der Hochzeit fragen. Deutsch und Englisch sind verwandte Sprachen. Wann im Entwicklungsprozess der Sprachen haben who und where beschlossen, ihre Plätze miteinander zu tauschen?
Can you explain the horror here when you were sitting down with A1 and you came across this anomaly?
I really honestly did not believe that this could possibly be true. I took my grammar book and asked multiple people, are you sure about this? There's no way. So in German, the word wer means who in English, which would be okay, except for that the English word where is wo in German. I mean, it's just completely switched. You would definitely think that wo in German should be who and wer should be where, but it's not. And I just don't understand why.
It doesn't make
sense. Like I say in the book, these languages are related. Why? Where? When did this happen?
How could it have been that they developed in completely opposite directions?
Yes, not just different words. Different words would be fine.
Yeah.
It's that they are so similar
and just kind of switched.
Yet not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It was, I think that's something that I remember experiencing well. And it leads to a lot of confusion as you speak about in the book. Like you could say something like, who is the bride when you actually mean, where is the bride?
Exactly. Yes. And I do that still to this day. I get them mixed up because they're just too similar. It's just not fair.
You have strong feelings that come across in the book about whether or not German is an ordered language or not.
not ordentlich, not orderly, or how
orderly.
I was
actually, as I was speaking, I'm like, is it ordered or orderly? I actually don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's go with orderly. We'll say orderly.
Yeah. No, it's not tidy or I don't know. No, it's not.
Because you would get the idea from Germans with such a efficient and orderly society or culture that their language would be, and maybe their own expectations or their belief is that it is, but it's not. And one of the examples you used was Frühstück for breakfast. It was Mittagessen, Abendessen, and then you spoke about Frühstück.
Not Frühstückessen. Not Frühstückessen. You don't, and that still confuses me. I say all the time, Frühstückessen. Sollen wir jetzt Frühstück essen? No,
and
you don't
for
do
some
that.
reason Frühstücken.
Yeah, exactly. It has its own verb. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, just for one meal.
I don't know. Exactly. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. And also you made good points about the articles. The der, die, das, dem, den translates to the, and the.
Yeah. Yes. So I have for you, I can send you a picture of this. I know that people can't see this, but I have this postcard. Maybe can you read it?
Yeah.
So exactly. In German, we have here Der, die, das, den, dem, des. All of that is the. In German, there's also du, dir, dich, ihr, euch, sie, ihnen. All those words are you. All of them. All of them are you. And then wieso, weshalb, warum, weswegen, and wozu, all those words are why. Now you tell me, if it's an efficient language, why would you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words for why and 7 words for you? That's just not efficient. 1 word is enough.
There you
Well,
go,
that's just
Germans.
me.
There you go. Why? Wieso indeed.
Yes, exactly. It's not efficient. No.
I want to play another clip of you reading from the book, and this one is about how Germans name their cities. So take a listen.
Die Namen vieler deutscher Städte sind für mich als englische Muttersprachlerin ein Fest. Titting, Quickborn, Worms, Rain, Kissing und jeder Ort mit dem Wort bad im Namen. Was zur Hölle hat Reichenhall getan? Was dachten sich die Gründer einer ganz bestimmten Stadt in Hessen, als sie Darmstadt nannten?
So some German cities, what you're basically saying in that clip is some German cities have strange names, like Worms, I think, was one of the examples for like worms. Essen is food. And then you ask about Darmstadt.
Yes, exactly. I love this city name, Darmstadt, but think about it. What is Darm if you look it up in a dictionary? It is intestine. Darm is the German word for intestine, and Stadt is city. So Darmstadt in German is literally intestine city. How? Why?
Why?
Where?
What is
when?
the- yeah.
Like,
Did you ever look up why that is? Have you ever looked into it?
sheepishly, she says no.
Me too. It just
did
occurred to me now.
not.
Maybe I should have looked this up before we spoke. But
I did not look it up.
maybe the
I
listeners
would
can tell
rather
me.
just come up with my own fantasy ideas of how this happened. You know, that's a lot more fun for me. I just
Yeah.
like to, yeah.
Probably better than the true history of Darmstadt.
It's just amazing. Or there's another one, for example, Denkendorf. Thinking village. That's so beautiful. That's so
Yes, it is.
amazing. Or
It
in the
is.
book, I also mention Baden-Baden.
Yeah.
Why twice, you know?
Yeah, why
Like, what if it was München, or Berlin, you know? Once is not enough.
And of course, there's another section in the book where you talk about driving for the first time towards Munich in Germany, and you kept on driving past a sign for the city, a very large city, Ausfahrt.
Yes. Please, has anybody else visited the beautiful city of Ausfahrt? I have yet to see it. And yet I feel like I'm constantly driving towards that when on the highway.
Seeing lots of signs for it.
Yes.
So one of the things that I really liked about your book is that it's not only about adjusting to the language, but it's also a bit about adjusting to the culture as well. And we spoke a bit about telephone conversations, but there's also an example is how Germans answer the telephone.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The last name. Just the last name.
Yeah.
And very quickly and very directly and brusquely, just the last name.
And if you're on the other end, you just, sometimes it catches me by surprise because they answer in it, as you say, so Schmidt. And that's it. There's
Exactly.
nothing else. And I don't know, am I speaking to which Schmidt am I speaking to now, or where have I come through? And it's very, very disorientating.
Yeah, and the way that it's so direct always makes me feel like I need to apologize for having called. Like, oh, I'm sorry. Did I annoy you? Did I interrupt something? Did I catch you at a bad time? And the person's like, no.
Have you learned to do that yourself? Have you been able to acclimatize yourself to handling conversations in that way?
No, I can't. I just can't do it. I can't answer the phone with my last name. I have met the Germans in the middle. I now try to answer the phone with, hello, hier ist Dana. That's my compromise, because in America, we would often just answer the phone with hello, and I know that Germans hate that. It really goes them on the cookie if someone just says hello and doesn't say who they are. So I meet them in the middle. Hello, here is Dana.
And there you go.
Got to compromise, you know?
That's it. That's integration. Sometimes integration is
Yeah,
compromising as well.
Yes. Yes.
It's also good when reading a book like this to know, to find out that you're not alone in some of the experiences that you have. Because one thing that I thought was just me is the whole spelling in German. So when people ask me to spell my name on the phone, I often end up spelling it phonetically a little bit similar to what the letters are in English. So the thing is, like, if you say for E, sometimes it comes across as an I. And you had a great part in the book about that.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing. It's like you've got the who and the where and the wo and the there thing. And then you've got the E and the I, where they really sound like they have traded places. I mean, I still get them confused to this day. The I in German is E, right? And the E in German is A. So it's kind of like an English A. It's really confusing, and I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, it's 13 years later, and I spell my name on the phone, and I still get my name Shaon because I'm saying oo instead of oo, and then they hear it as all, so they spell Sean with an O in it. So, and that's happening 13 years later, Dana. It's still
okay. I have a question for you, turning the tables around for a second. So in the US, when we spell, we would usually say like A for alpha, B for, and we would say it like that, for. We would say the whole sentence. And I got so confused the first time here in Germany that somebody started spelling and they just said like alpha, Berta, and they just said the words.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you even talking about? No, you have to say A for. So what do you do in South Africa? Is it this quick thing?
We do that. We go A for whatever. It's not always the military alphabet, but sometimes we just say A for apple, B for Bertie or whatever, and that's it. But the Germans have a very specific one. I guess it's their version of the military alphabet where it's like Evie, Emil, and exactly like you say, they will rattle it off without saying what the letter is. They'll just you need to know that alphabet to understand what the hell they're talking about.
Exactly. I printed it out at my first job. I printed it out and I had it there hanging on my desk because I didn't know what they were saying. And I had to have this code to figure out what they were spelling.
Yeah, it is. It's very tough. And that's exactly, when it comes to spelling, I'd rather just give me a piece of paper and I'll write it down for you, or I'll send you an email. We'll do it that way because it's not going to work other ways. What has the response to the book been like from native speakers?
Wonderful. And I'm so excited about that. When I was writing it, I was laughing along the way and I was just hoping that the humor would come across because, that's tricky. When I write something and then to try to get that humor to come across to German speakers, and the feedback that I've gotten, German speakers have said they've been laughing while reading it. I even heard from someone who said they laughed out loud in the U-Bahn, which is a big thing, to laugh out loud in the public transportation.
You don't need bestseller lists. You don't need prizes or whatever. You just need to know that a German laughed on the U-Bahn. That's it. You've done
exactly.
You're done.
Yep, that's it.
I don't know what you're going to do now, Dana, but you've pretty much reached the peak.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
What would you say was your biggest factor in your success in learning German?
I would say I really, really, really wanted to. It wasn't this kind of, sorta, maybe it would be good. No, I wanted to so bad. That was also the thing that made it, though, the most disappointing when I was struggling because I really, really, really wanted it. But I think that was the biggest factor, just how much I wanted to. And so I kept going, even when it was hard. Even when I was crying, I kept pushing. I didn't give up on it. And also, I think it does help that I'm fascinated by languages. Like, that doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
That even when I was frustrated, I was still like, but it is kind of fascinating. Like,
I'm still intrigued.
Dative. Yeah, exactly. Like, I hate dative and I'm crying, but also kind of cool.
What is it that made you wonder? Was it just the relationship, or was there something more that you just took it on as a challenge? What was your driving force, basically?
No, I mean, when I was living in Prague, it was mostly the relationship thing. Like I wanted to be able to communicate with my now boyfriend's family and friends. But then once I moved to Germany, I just knew, no, I can't live here without being able to speak the language. Like that for me was really important because I felt so kind of out of place living here and not being able to speak the language. I couldn't read signs. I couldn't understand what was going on around me. I really didn't like it at all. I wanted to feel like I could understand things. I wanted to have the feeling that I could go into a store and ask what I needed to ask, get what I needed to get. You know, I didn't like feeling like I was dependent on other people. So yeah, it was just really important to me that I learned it to make me feel at home here.
Yeah. Let's move on to your YouTube channel now, which has been running for quite a few years, hasn't it?
Yes, I've been doing the YouTube channel, like bringing videos out regularly for coming up on 6 years now. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, when I moved to Germany, there was not much going on in the YouTube space. I moved, like I said, 13 years ago, 2007. I often wish that
YouTube was fresh, yeah.
I know.
And YouTube was so new.
Yeah, and I often wish, and now there's blogs. If you're coming to Germany or any country, if you're moving to any country in the world right now, you have blogs, you've got podcasts, you've got YouTube videos, you've got books, it's like, it's much easier to do it from a point of view of learning exactly what you're going to be experiencing, getting some expectations. And you can do a lot of work even before you step foot in the country nowadays. But back when I did, there was none of that. So I remember, I think fairly early on, seeing your videos and some other videos coming out on YouTube. And but for those who might not know, like the three listeners that might not know about your show, what's your Wanted Adventure channel all about?
Yeah, so Wanted Adventure, I talk on this channel about culture and languages, specifically mostly about the German culture as I have experienced it. So I don't always get things right, but I listen to people in the comments and I enjoy reading the comments and I share my experiences living in Germany. This is what I've noticed. This is how I've experienced it. And yeah, then it's kind of a conversation like, how have you experienced it? And I'm often comparing that to how I experienced it in the US. But for me, I really enjoy just talking about the cultural differences and learning about all sorts of things going on all over the world, how people do different things. And the name came from because when I first moved to Prague, I was so nervous. I mean, I say it now, like I bought a one-way ticket and I moved to Prague, But I mean, I was so scared. And what I kept telling myself every time I got that lump in my throat when I was somewhere and scared and something wasn't going quite right or whatever, having trouble with paperwork or anything, I told myself, you wanted an adventure. You said you wanted an adventure. This is part of the adventure. Okay? Okay. And that helped to calm me, to know that even the tricky things, the scary things, that was all part of the adventure that I had wanted. And so that's how I came up with Wanted Adventure. And so on my YouTube channel, yeah, I talk about also the scary things with moving abroad and the wonderful things. Yeah.
What are the comments like? Because I know for a lot of people who are doing what you're doing, sometimes the comments can be very positive and mostly positive, but I know that there's also sometimes negativity. Is that something that you deal with?
I would say at the beginning, yes. And that was a lot harder for me to deal with. I've also gotten a thicker skin over the years, but also with doing the videos, I have found a community. There is the Wanted Adventure community. And so most of the comments, the overwhelming amount of comments are just so interesting and wonderful. And yeah, I really appreciate that.
So yeah, I think, like you say, it's a tough thing in the beginning to just kind of not let those things deter you or slow you down.
Exactly. Yeah. And it definitely can be hard if you're just first starting out and putting videos out there because people don't know who you are. And I hope that people have kind of learned that sometimes if I make a mistake or I get something wrong, that I don't know, like they've kind of learned, yeah, but she's interested in learning about that, so I can write in the comments, hey, it's actually like this. And I don't have to write, you awful person,
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I am really thankful for the Wanted Adventure community and the comments that they leave. It is really, really fascinating.
And of course, on your channel, you've started something, Danaz Originals. I think you've called it. And one of the things that's under that sort of umbrella is a show called Being a Woman. So what maybe explain a little bit about what that's about and what the inspiration behind that was.
So for 5 years of doing the Wanted Adventure channel, the majority of my videos were really funny, upbeat videos about the German windows and just funny things like spaghetti ice and the German language. And I loved that. I really enjoyed every second of those videos, but I was starting to feel like I really want to do something a little bit deeper. And there was this topic that I had thought about making some videos on, my experience of being a woman in Germany versus the USA, kind of like I always did it, my experience with cooking food in Germany versus USA, or bathrooms in Germany versus USA. I wanted to do a couple videos on being a woman in Germany versus the USA, and I started planning them out. And then I realized, I also need to talk about this, and I also need to talk about that, and there's also this. And, I just found I couldn't do it in 2 videos. And I also found that I wanted not only my experience of being a woman in Germany versus the USA, but other people's experiences, because I'm just one person, and this was such a important topic that I didn't want it to just, be like, this is how I experienced it and there it is. No, I really wanted to talk to other people about their experiences. And so I put together, around 10 topics. I was thinking maybe it would be 10 videos. Now it's so far been 20 because that's somehow how projects evolve. And I started reaching out to other YouTubers and also podcasters and experts living around Germany, Germans, and people from other countries to talk about these different topics, all about, the experience of being a woman.
Yeah, and it's amazing to watch. I mean, obviously, for me, it's interesting to watch, and to be honest, some of those episodes I watch with equal parts embarrassment for the way a lot of society is and the way a lot of society has been for a long time, and also just horror of what people or what women have to accept as norms, or what not have to accept as norms, but sometimes accept as being a normal situation, and then it's not. And that's why I think, especially as a father of 2 daughters who are very young still and got a lot of time to grow up to start seeing these issues, I guess. But I think it's important to have these kind of dialogues and talks about it because it's definitely the kind of thing that can make it a better experience for women in the future. So I think it's amazing what you're doing. But like I said, I watch sometimes with a lot of horror when I hear what's normal. I'm speaking specifically of the one about having sex and the expectations of when and what's expected of people. And it was, for me, very eye-opening.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And for me doing that, like I said, most of my videos were always really funny and happy and upbeat. And sometimes I've gotten questions from people like, well, how did you feel ready to talk about that kind of a serious topic, or really personal topic, actually? And it was like, actually, I was not ready until I was there on camera doing it. I mean, leading up to that, if you had asked me a year ago, do you want to talk about this really personal sexual experience on camera? I would have said, no, absolutely not. But then I just realized I really want to do this series. I think it's important to talk about because also, people need to know, but also I wish I had known that. And I just realized, I have to talk about it. And then, talking about it, I was very nervous to do it. But I was happy that I was doing it with the other woman who I was doing it with. That's the other nice thing about being on camera with another person. You have that support.
Yeah. And I think you found a lot of authentic and honest voices. That it was amazing to hear all of their stories. It's really cool. So yeah, definitely check out those Being a Woman videos. So maybe you could just give me a bit of behind the scenes of a typical video on your channel. Like, how long does it take to go from idea phase through to actually putting the video out there?
Yeah, people are often surprised to hear how long it really takes. So we're talking here not a Being a Woman video, but just like a standard in front of a background in my apartment video. I start by coming up with an idea. Of course, that could take a second or it could take an hour to come up with an idea. Then I start writing a script. So for most of my videos, I do write a script, and that takes probably about 2 hours if I have no researching. It's just a my opinion or my experience video. So 2 hours. Then I set up the camera equipment. I do my makeup, get everything ready. That's about an hour. And then I film. Filming is quite quick. That takes probably about an hour to an hour and a half. Now we're at, I think, like 4 or 5 hours. Then editing. Whew. Editing can take a day. Yeah, I would say a day.
A day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a day, depending on the video, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
a full
day. Very, very intensive. I can only speak from a podcast point of view, and I can tell you, I underestimated how much work just goes in producing an audio show. There's no video in my show; it's just audio, and just that is incredible. And honestly, my guests do most of the work for the podcast. So I can only imagine being a YouTuber how much effort goes into that. Yeah. How did you learn editing? Did you kind of teach yourself as you went along? And how long did it take to learn?
Yeah, I did. I just taught myself, learned by doing, as people in Germany love to say.
Learning by doing.
And I didn't know anything about editing when I started. I just taught myself. And you can see the progression if you go back and look at my earlier videos. I learned everything. I didn't know anything about hosting or writing a script or, filming, being on camera, editing, making thumbnails, using, the editing tools, none of that. And I don't know. I mean, of course, I'm still learning today, but I would say it took really like 4 years. So what Stefan and I, that's my husband, and he also works with me on the project, what we kind of said when we did the Being a Woman series was that this was like our thesis project. So we had spent 4 years learning about filming and equipment and editing and interviewing and all of these things. And now we went out and did this huge project, and kind of utilized all of our skills. So it did take a while to build up those skills.
Okay. So yeah, people should definitely check out the YouTube video, but your YouTube channel. But you're, of course, that's not the only thing that you're doing. You're a very busy woman, Dana. You're also on Instagram, right? You're pretty active there.
Exactly. Yeah. Also on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, and there you do some German language stuff.
Exactly. So my YouTube channel is mostly in English, and then on Instagram, it's like Danglish. So Deutsch, English, Danglish. My stories are pretty much mostly in German or Danglish, but I try to make little English subtitles for the stories so that, people who don't speak German know what's going on. And then my posts are usually in English. So it's a very, Danglish Instagram account.
Okay, cool. So, and you've also got dananewman.com.
.de.
.de, sorry.
.de, yeah, dananewman.de. And I give workshops. That's also part of my job, is that I give workshops about social media. Yeah. And I love that. Oh, I love that so much.
YouTube how-tos, all kinds of things are available on your site.
Exactly.
Dana, it's been amazing chatting to you. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the show and also talking about your learning process. I really think that a lot in this book will resonate with people. And I think for people who are just starting out German now, I'm going to say, buy the book, put it on your shelf. And when you reach that point, that can be, you'll know you've come to that point in your German progress where you can read Dana's book and look back at everything that you've learned. So definitely take a look at it, even if your German's not that great. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show, Dana.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was a lot of fun. It was cool to talk to you.
All right, so don't forget thegermanexperience.de/subscribe for all kinds of links for the show. And by the way, I forgot to mention this at the top of the show, but you can now leave me voicemails if you want to. If you go to thegermanexperience.de/message, there's an option for you to click a button and record a voice message for me. And I think it's about 30 seconds maximum clip that you can leave. But please go there, ask me questions, rant if you want to. Just basically tell me anything that you want to tell me. And I'd love to hear from you. That's it. The music in this podcast, as always, by my band 10 Cent Janes and also Ryan Anderson until the end. This is the end. Auf Wiederhören.